One of the big problems with video games in general is you build up a hero in the first game and then the sequel comes around and a lot of times that character gets nerfed and knocked down. They lose all their powers. I mean, the Ratchet and Clank games, where do his guns go, right? Like, with Miles, you have kind of an inexperienced hero rising here, which kind of fits that bill, right? Like of resetting to square one, but at the same time, you have player expectation of, you just came off this amazing Spider-Man experience with him fully powered. How do you strike that balance of trying to kind of meet both needs?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. For us, it really was about figuring out how we grow Miles as a character through his gameplay while still like retaining what people already had for knowledge coming into the game. And so, for example, a lot of the stuff that you unlocked actually in the original Spider-Man, you have as base now in Miles Morales. So a lot of like, you could upgrade different ways you could yank and swing kicks and jumps and all that stuff now is just unlocked by default. And then we train it in progression a little bit. And so we take that, so players already have a clear understanding of how to fight just with the basic Spider-Man combat. And then we started layering in his new Venom ability. This is bioelectric Venom attacks. And so that added an extra layer that gives the player discovery and new things to play with while still allowing them to retain and have their previous knowledge.
Can you kind of just talk about the difference between Miles and Peter in terms of combat?
Sure. I mean, the first thing we wanted to do was, again, make sure the players were comfortable, but they felt different. And so like Miles actually has a whole new suite of animations, really to show kind of his youthful attitude, his style, him not being so confident in his attacks. Like you really see that in his animations, both in combat and traversal. The core combat is going to feel like just the base combat is going to feel very similar. But now how you weave those into the new Venom abilities, right? And then how you can kind of spec your character, right, to mesh those abilities with the core Spider-Man combat is really where we pushed and went new with it.
Do you start to reduce the number of animations where he's not so confident as the game goes on? Does he gain some confidence, and do you show that visually?
That was definitely talked early on, right? It was like something we wanted to do. He just has a bazillion anims, right? And so that was a little challenging for us to do. I think we might do that a little bit with swinging, but as far as his core combat, what I think we tried to do was strike hey, this is his own style, and he has a little bit, but not all the confidence, so they could last the entire game and still feel like he was solid and getting better.
And then another thing, players expect when they go into a sequel is stuff to feel different or additions to. Do you think the Venom attacks kind of fill that need for new things in combat, or do you have other things you're putting in to kind of feed that?
I definitely think the Venom abilities add a whole nother awesome layer to combat and how you can flow and chain stuff together. And really, again, like for us, a lot of the Spider-Man core combat was really mano-a-mano, right? Like you could bounce around and jump and take dudes out. And that was really about what Spider-Man is about, his agile, improvisational nature. And so, but it was mostly single target. With the new Venom abilities, right, we tried to push more AoE. So you're mixing single target with AoE attacks and really being able to like combo those together. But we also have new gadgets, right, that we worked to make sure they comboed well with the improvements to, or the enhancements to the combat. And then also we have a whole new set of like essentially suit mod or suit enhancements, right? And those come into two categories, which are like visor mods that tend to be associated in some sort of like stealth capacity or weakness, like being able to spot things. So one of those mods is a mod, and Brian Horton was talking about this earlier, is the one where you can see if other people are seeing your stealth target, right? It draws lines to connect them. And we have a bunch of varying mods like that. And then we also have mods for kind of the mesh or body, and those do certain enhancements. Like, yes, we have all these Venom attacks, but like one of those mods, for example, every sixth hit, you get a charged Venom hit, right? And so you can start weaving those things in. And so, yeah, I think it all adds to kind of a fully fleshed out, enhanced Spider-Man combat.
Can you put those mods on different suits once you unlock them?
Yep. So yeah, some suits come with mods. Some mods you can buy independent of suits, and then you can mix and match as you want.
Cool. On a mechanical level, how can you activate the Venom powers? How does that work in combat?
Yeah, so in combat, we have a dedicated like Venom button, and that is the L1 button. When you hold that button, you start to like glow with electricity. And that's once, like, as you're like fighting in combat, you build up your Venom power, right? And then you can spend that on Venom moves. And so, for example, the Venom Punch, which you'll see in the demo, right? You would hold L1 and you'd hit the square button, and that would do the Venom Punch, right? And when that hits a guy, it puts Venom status on him, which is like electricity, like bioelectricity on him, and then it spreads it to the guys surrounding, right? And that electricity actually helps you take them out quicker. It kind of debuffs them a little bit. And there's a lot of cool, fun skill progression in how you can spread that or chain it or mix it up. And so that's kind of the key to doing his Venom attacks. And so each one of the face buttons, except for circle, has an associated Venom ability.
Can you share any examples of gadgets and like how those will work? Like some examples of what those gadgets are?
Yeah. So I think we were showcasing in the demo. There are two new ones. One is what we call the gravity well gadget, right? And what it does is it creates this kind of like gravity well that sucks everyone together, right? And that could be really nicely comboed with a lot of those Venom abilities, because those do big AoEs. So you might suck a bunch of guys in and do the Venom jump and pop them all up around you and just kind of like chain around and fight them. Similarly to the Venom Punch. Now the gravity well gets upgraded, so it has its own progression that enhances it even more. And just to give another example, it's like one of the enhancements lets you disarm everyone you pull together, right? So it has some cool powers to it. Another awesome gadget that we have is the remote mine. And it's kind of like amped up electric web in some way. You remember electric web from Spider-Man? You shot it, you hit a guy, he was electrified. What this does is it lets you shoot at a mine that is an electric AoE mine and activate it when you want, right? And so you could just shoot it out and pop it, and it'll take a guy out, right, and electrify him and any surrounding guys. Or you might put it on a guy like in stealth, right, or near a location where he's patrolling, and then wait till he or some friends walk by and blow it up and take dudes out. And so it was something to help complement our stealth gameplay, but you could also use in active combat.
So are all the gadgets new then, or does he have access to the stuff Pete was using?
He has all new gadgets.
Pete doesn't like to share, huh?
Yeah, he's an only child, so.
Like they're both very smart and scientists. And one of the gadgets, but I'm not going to give up yet, he gets the inspiration from Pete, and so, we try to really make sure we hit that science element with Miles, because that is a big part of his character.
In one of the gameplay sequences we saw, Miles is going after a new form power reactor. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of puts his hands on this circular device, this spherical device, and drains the power from it. You see you almost see his rib cage, like the energy inside of him. It's that gold glow. Are his powers based on new form? Venom, is that?
No, his powers are based purely on his own kind of organic spider abilities. When he was bit, the way his spider abilities manifested was that now he can generate his own bioelectricity, right? And throughout the game, he's learning, just as the player's learning, how those powers work and how they manifest and how he can use them in combat. And so they're not related to new form at all, but anything electricity, like he can absorb that electricity and redirect it.
Is he becoming more powerful when he takes out that reactor? Is that a way of getting another bar or anything like that?
Actually, anything that electric that you can drain, you do get a Venom bar from. You do fill it up. So yes, when you do drain that electricity, it does power them up a little bit. But when it's something as big as that reactor, because there's varying sizes of electricity, kind of makes him a little woozy, because it's a lot of power he's absorbing, right? But yeah, generally he because of his bioelectric powers, he can harness a lot of electricity type stuff.
I kind of want to shift gears to, I think one of the exciting things about this game is that it's going to be front and center day one on the PlayStation 5. One of the things that Sony's really pushing is this haptic feedback on the controller. And I'm curious about how you guys developed with that. Did it have challenges? And then like, do you feel like it actually like changes the game for you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that was a real big push for us being, you know, a Sony PS5 launch title with this new controller. Like, how are we going to best express this? Right. And for me, it's kind of night and day in a lot of ways compared to the PS4 controller as far as rumble. Like PS4 was great, but it's like, this is like the next level. It's almost like going from 1080 to 4K, right? As far as rumble fidelity, right? And so, very much so, you can feel the dimensionality on the controller. And so I'll give you an example of one of the ways we utilized it. So like our Venom Punch that we talked about earlier, right? You hold L1 and that lets you like charge and see the electricity. You can feel that light rumble on the left side of the controller. And then when you go and do the punch action, right? So you're hitting L1, you're starting to charge up, you feel the vibration of electricity, you hit square and then you charge back and you punch, you feel the energy shift over to the left side, right? And then when you punch, you feel the impact, right? And so you really feel the dimensionality of it. And we can do a lot more, because of the resolution of the rumble, a lot more variation in intensities for the rumble, right? You combine that with some of the speaker audio and you really can hit a certain fidelity level. Another great example of how we're utilizing that is in our traversal mechanics. And so like swinging, big part of Spider-Man. And what we looked at doing for that is the new PS5 controller has the resistant triggers, right? But not only that, the triggers themselves have their own rumbler in them, right? And so an example of what we did in Spider-Man in Miles Morales was when you start swinging, you press that trigger, right? You'll feel the initial rumble, a little vibration as the line attaches. And then as you keep pulling through, you'll feel the resistance as you connect and then swing through. And so it adds like this whole nother level to it. Now, there's challenges, obviously, that comes with that. I think our biggest challenge is just finding the right amount to dial in. You don't want too much, you don't want too little, because we have such control over what we can do with the controller. Like we can actually make the trigger resistance really resistant. Like you press it, you feel it, you know? And so trying to balance that to make sure it wasn't too much and that it fit the motion and fit the actions was probably the biggest challenge we worked through. But, a lot of play testing, a lot of feedback, getting people, just feeling it out and giving their input on it.
For sure. Do you think this kind of takes, because I think a lot of discourse online is about like QTEs and their place in games these days and whether they're last gen, this gen, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like those kind of changes accentuate those events to make them feel a little bit more immersive?
Oh, for sure. We very much utilized it as much as possible in all the different gameplay scenarios. And the QTs we have are no exception. Really, we can look at how we play with those moments and add a certain fidelity that we couldn't before.
In the last game you had, Peter Parker going to the lab, looking through a microscope, stuff like that for mini games. This time around, you're going more into 3D space. Can you kind of describe that shift and what we can expect from it?
So a big push for us in evolving forward in our puzzles was looking at how we keep it more in-world, how we utilize the world and Miles' abilities in-world to push that. One of our puzzles is actually related to using your Venom abilities and using like the Venom power to connect between devices, right? Like you can attach a web between two things and electrify it. And so you're moving the current. And so you got to look around the space and figure out how are you going to like get the power from this power source, let's say over to this door to open it up, right? And so much more in-world, much more using some of his core abilities. And that for us was a big focus. We have another one, and I love this one a lot. It is one of our collectible types, right? Is kind of a sample collectible. You need to essentially find this audio source in the environment, right? And so it has you kind of looking around, listening, utilizing the 3D audio, and then you feel it on the controller as you're trying to find the sample. And you like for example, let's just say I'm trying to find, I don't know, this car that's on and rumbling, right? Like I'm looking around the environment, I start to feel it on the controller, I start to hear a little audio coming out, I start to hear it, through my speakers, and then I can really focus in on it. And so again, it goes back to trying to keep our puzzles in world, and then also utilizing a lot of the new controller stuff.
Is that fidelity also going to be there for PS4 users who play this game?
Yeah, we tried to match it as best we could. Like we have a certain parity level with the PS4 and PS5. There's just like a fidelity. Again, it's like thinking about it like 1080 to 4K. Like everything's represented. It's just what's the granularity in between.
One thing I was pretty impressed with from the demo is just the camera work, even or especially while you're in combat. It feels like it kind of moves around in a pretty dynamic way. So I was hoping you could talk a little bit about the work you guys put into that and why you felt it was valuable.
And, evolving and pushing forward the Spider-Man combat with Miles, adding those layers with the Venom abilities, kind of our other mantra was, how do we get it as cinematic as possible? I think in the original Spider-Man, we had the finishers, which are really awesome cinematic moments. And how can we get those while flowing in combat with core gameplay moves? And so all of our Venom abilities feature like cinematic camera work where we'll put it on third, we'll zoom it in, we'll slow it down, you come in and punch and really accentuate the moves. And that was big for us. Now, the challenge in doing that is making sure the players still feel like they have control, like the game's not playing for them, right? That like they're doing these actions and they can flow through all the normal combat into these cinematic moments and then back out. And so we really pushed on trying to hit that with the Venom abilities.
In terms of the open world, a lot of the activities in the first game, it became a little bit repetitive, stopping the car, stuff like that. Have you worked on expanding the number of diversions, I guess, or mini activities you'll run into?
Yeah, we have a whole different suite of activities from the original Spider-Man, all kind of themed more towards Miles, helping build Miles' story. And so, we have some classic things like crimes, right? And we have a new suite of crimes that we have, but then we have all new stuff. And one of our big key features in the open world is this new thing we're calling the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man app. And what that lets the player do is it's an app that Genki made actually for Miles that connects him to all the neighborhoods in Manhattan, right? And so the people can call in and request, help doing something, right? Or they could request, or they could say there's suspicious activity. And really the app is a place where you can find activities and quests and even crimes that the neighborhood is letting Miles know about. And so that really keeps, I think, the player in the world and grounded and able to kind of go out and help the different districts. Outside of that, we have a couple different collectibles. We have a really fun thing, which is like Pete challenges. So, Pete is Miles' mentor. And so helping train Miles, he set up these awesome holographic challenges to help him in his skills. And those come in 3 types, which are traversal challenges, combat challenges, and stealth challenges. What's new from the original Spider-Man is when you complete these challenges, you actually unlock a new skill in the skill tree, right? So it's not just currency to help you progress, but you actually unlock new skills plus currency. And so that's another big push we did with the open world, is making sure there was meaningful rewards, like completing all these different activities, you tend to unlock a new suit, which is always awesome.
Can you talk a little bit about the skill tree, what we can expect in there?
Definitely. It's a fully fleshed out skill tree. It's there to help, accentuate the new things that we've added for Miles in his combat. So they focus a lot around his Venom abilities, how he utilizes them. New Venom abilities are actually unlocked in there as well. It also focuses around camouflage and stealth, right? Because it's another big component of Miles. And so they really let you kind of build Miles in a direction that, fits your play style. Camo, a great example. A lot of people think of it as more of a defensive style gameplay, and we definitely support that. But we also support offensive camo usage, right? Like you can use it to get extra free hits or build combo, or do certain things to make it more active than just like, oh, I'm going to pop camo and go hide.
One of the things that Sony games have done really well, and I think the first Spider-Man was one of those, one of the first moments of that, is utilize photo mode and just watch it explode across Twitter and Facebook and social media. What kind of feedback did you guys get from the first game? And then what enhancements and changes are you making to photo mode this time around?
That's one of those things that just like blew up in popularity, championed by Gil and Jacinda on the original Spider-Man. And so, yeah, we definitely have some enhancements for that. And so one of the big enhancements that we're adding is a fully customizable light rig. So you can like move and place the lighting in your photo shots, right? And you can set up to 3 lights, right? So that's one of the things that really help enhance how people are taking photos. Another thing is we have all new like selfie anims and different poses now with Miles that are just super awesome. Bunch of new stickers, frames, and fun other little things. But our biggest thing is the light rig that really adds a lot to it, and all the fun new poses that you can do.
Sure. Did you have any favorite shots from the community that stood out?
There's a lot of amazing shots. I mean, I couldn't say specifically, but my favorite thing, and this is part of the reason why the light rig was added, I think, as well, is just seeing where people went in the world to go find the best lighting, right? Like, oh man, this sign glows like this. I'm going to go pose right next to it like this and get this like awesome glow on me. And just like seeing where people went to take photos and like what the common trends were because of the certain lighting scenarios was awesome to see.
Was there anything in particular about the photo mode that you guys were blown away by? Like, I can't believe people got those kinds of shots. Like, what was the consensus there?
I mean, I'm still like, I've worked on Spider-Man now for quite some time, still blown away just about the fidelity level. Like, when you're playing the normal game, you're running around, beating things up, swinging around, things are fast, boom, boom, boom. You don't really get a sense of like, oh, I'm going to look at all the detail in Spider-Man's costume, right? Just like, wow, look at the detail of that, or look at the detail of the world. And I think for me, that's the best thing. It really gives everyone a chance to see just how gorgeous the game is.
Talk to me a little bit about the new takedowns. Like there's the new wall takedown. Different surfaces.
Yeah, so part of Miles is his camouflage, and coming with that, we wanted to add some enhancements to overall stealth combat, right? And so a big part of that was giving more opportunities for him to do stealth takedowns from various different surfaces and areas. In the original Spider-Man, you could do stealth takedowns from the ground and from perches, and so we wanted to expand on that. And so now in Miles, you can actually do stealth takedowns from wall crawling, or from the ceiling, or from a ceiling hang, right? So we gave a lot of opportunities, and when you mix that with the camo, it really just kind of opens up the playing field.
You talked a little bit about stealth already, but I just wonder, like, quick overview on like how stealth is better, how you guys focused in on that. Is that still, I don't know, are you focusing more on, like, are there going to be more stealth opportunities, or is it just kind of like one tool in a toolkit kind of thing?
I mean, we've added more options for stealth. And really, I think the biggest thing is like we had a lot of stealth opportunities in the original Spider-Man, right? We had some rad stealth setups. You go in, stealth, ninja around. I think what has changed a little bit in Miles is because you have camo, you can reset stealth. Like, if you get busted and you get down there and you start fighting, you can reset and go back to stealth. And so that ability to like change up the pace for the players, I think is big, right? And so then we combine that with the camo tree and the new camo abilities, and really like it just allows the player to have more control over the play experience they want to have, right? And so like my favorite thing is like being in mid combat, right? Stealthing, taking a dude out, and then going to the rafters, and then being able to kind of like pick it apart again.
What is the one thing that the PS5 allowed you guys to do that you couldn't do in the first Spider-Man?
I think the biggest one for me is load times. Like, man, just like, it still blows me away that like, oh, I just turned on the game. Oh, it's running. It's there. It's going, like, so that for me is giant. I think the other thing is like seeing all like the game ray traced, especially with like it being wintertime and you have the ice and the wet and the snow, and just seeing the lighting and it reflected is just like, it just feels next level. Like it feels next level to me, and it's awesome.
I love the set pieces you guys have been building and look really cool. Can you talk a little bit about just the process of how you go about constructing something as crazy as the rhino fight we saw? Like, it's very big and involved, and
definitely
feels like it was a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and it takes the whole team, right? It takes everyone being invested and buying in to an idea. And so a lot of that starts with, high level vision from the creative director, but really the writer and the designer, animators and environment people kind of just working together. Hey, here's an idea of what we think the opening of the game should be. We want to make it feel epic. We want these big set piece moments. And so we start kind of outlining what those can be, and we just kind of naturally start evolving through those. The Rhino boss fight at the end of Winter Break wasn't originally there. Like, you were riding Rhino the whole time and doing all that stuff, but we tutorialized Venom on regular guys. But then as we were playing through it and we had so much Rhino, we were like, man, you know what? Like, we just need to fight Rhino at the end here, And how do we do that in a way that feels epic, but still allows the opportunity for the player to learn the new Venom abilities, right? And so I think that really worked out well. But it's that thing in development where you have this plan, but not until you start playing it and getting everyone playing it and seeing does it evolve and kind of take its own shape, And if you're aware of that and can run with it, you can create great things.
Cool. I think that is a wrap.